Kelly and I went to visit in California last week, and last Sunday we were in a church called Ocean. It's a new church plant there in Orange County. And a 34-year-old preacher was up there, and he said, I'm a black preacher in a white man's Bible. So we're gonna have a lot of amens. We had several of them. We have been going through Genesis and looking at stories in Genesis with the theme of redemption, and just a little bit of refresher on what we mean by redeem or redemption. Redemption has to do with reclaiming something or someone that has been lost, or freeing from bondage, freeing someone from bondage. And of course, in the Christian understanding, redemption is being reclaimed by God, being taken out of our bondage to sin, and being made whole again through Christ. And so our theme is redemption, and if there was anyone in the book of Genesis who needed redemption, it was Jacob. Consider for a moment the short list of Jacob's offenses. He used his brother Esau's moment of weakness to claim his brother's inheritance from him, and then with the help of his mother, Rebekah, he deceived his father in order to affirm the birthright by blessings secured from his father by swindle. And so that is to say, he secured his father's blessing of the birthright that he had secured by deceiving his brother. He secured his father's blessing by deception. Well, how did he do that? He pretended to be his brother Esau, and his father was old and blind, near blind. And he pretended to be Esau, and Esau, as the older son, would have been entitled to the blessing, but Jacob pretended to be Esau and got his father's blessing with the help of his mother. So what led Jacob and his mother to take this route, to deceive Isaac like that? Well, to answer that question, we need to go back to when Jacob and Esau were in the womb, and we picked this up at in Genesis there, verse 19. These are the generations of Isaac, Abraham's son. Abraham fathered Isaac, and Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah, the daughter of Bethuel, the Aramean of Paddan Aram, the sister of Laban, the Aramean, to be his wife. And Isaac prayed to the Lord for his wife because she was barren. And the Lord granted his prayer, and Rebekah, his wife, conceived. The children struggled together within her, and she said, if it is thus, why is this happening to me? So she went to inquire of the Lord. And the Lord said to her, 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 peoples from within you shall be divided. And one shall be stronger than the other, and the older shall serve the younger. When her days to give birth were completed, behold, there were twins in her womb. The first came out red, all his body was like a hairy cloak, so they called him Esau. And afterward, his brother came out with his hand holding Esau's heel, so his name was called Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when she bore them. Now in those days, human tradition held that the firstborn son got the lion's share of the father's estate. It's just the way things work. Was it fair? I mean, who's to say? But that's the way the world worked in those days. So have you ever noticed the human tendency to interpret God's word by filtering it through the lens of our own experience? You have God's word, but we take it and understand it and apply it through our own experience. I mean, Abraham and Sarah, they certainly were guilty of that, weren't they? God had promised Abraham a son, and when in Abraham's eyes, God delayed in fulfilling that promise, Abraham and Sarah effectively said, God, let us help you with that. Sarah gave her servant Hagar to Abraham so that a child could be conceived, and in fact a son was born to Hagar, but God was not pleased. Sarah and Abraham had taken God's promise and applied it with human understanding. And in the case of Jacob and Rebekah, we have a mother and son playing out the same plan, making the same mistake. God had promised Rebekah that the older son, Esau, would serve the younger son, Jacob. And there can be little doubt, as Jacob was growing up, his mother remembered what God had said to her, and there can be little doubt that she shared that word with Jacob. But Rebekah and Jacob as well must have wondered, how can it be that the older will serve the younger? I mean, custom dictated what custom dictated. The older son gets the lion's share of the father's wealth and the blessing. But God had said, but Rebekah couldn't get it out of her mind that the older, what God said, the older will serve the younger. So to Rebekah's way of thinking, that meant she must find a way to allow Jacob to take Esau's place, literally. So like Abraham and Sarah, Rebekah and Jacob said, Lord, let us help you with that. You want the older to serve the younger? Let us help you with that. Loved ones, we must never forget. God's word understood and applied solely through human experience is always a recipe for disaster. And all you parents out there, another recipe for disaster is favoring one child over another. Isaac preferred Esau, and Jacob was mama's favorite. Jacob was definitely a mama's boy, both literally and figuratively. Now Esau, on the other hand, he was a rough and ready kind of guy, a shoot 'em up kind of guy. If he could have subscribed to magazines back in those days, he would have subscribed to Guns and Ammo and Field and Stream. I mean, his philosophy was find them, kill them, eat them. Jacob was more of an HGTV Food Network kind of guy. He could make a mean gumbo, but he wouldn't have been much good in a knife fight. At least not until God got hold of him, and until he got a hold on God that he would never let go. So yes, the young Jacob was something of a cheat and a liar. I mean, he just was. But his deception came at a high cost. Esau had put up with Jacob smooth talking him out of his inheritance. But when Jacob stole his father's blessing, Esau was ready to kill him. And Jacob would have been no match for Esau. I mean, the strength and conditioning of Esau, Jacob was no match for it. His only choice was to run, and his mother told him to go to be with his uncle Laban up in Haran, which was in the north. It's what is today Syria. And so Jacob did run. He ran and he went on his way, and one night on this trip, he put a rock under his head for a pillow. Jacob wasn't so bright at this point. And God encountered him in a dream. And let me share part of what happened in that dream. This is God speaking to Jacob. I am the Lord, the God of Abraham, your father, and the God of Isaac. The land in which you lie I will give to you and to your offspring. Your offspring shall be like the dust of the earth, and you shall spread abroad to the west and to the east and to the north and to the south. And in you and your offspring shall all the families of the earth be blessed. Behold, I am with you, and will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land. For I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. So here we have Jacob on his way to a self-created exile brought about by his own deception. And he's receiving God's profound blessings. God at once affirmed the blessing that he had given to Abraham and Isaac, I will make you a great nation blessing. But God didn't stop there. God knew that Jacob was going into exile. He was going away from home. He was going to be gone a long time, and God gave him more personal blessings. Behold, I am with you, and will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land, for I will not leave you until I have done what I promised you. These words anticipate Jesus just before he ascended into heaven. Remember, I'm with you, always, even to the end of the age. So already we see, and this liar and cheat, Jacob was a piece of work. We see God working redemption in Jacob's life, even as he's on the run. And here we have a reminder that God does not save us because of who we are or what we've done. He saves us because of who he is and what Christ has done for us. Now you would think that Jacob would have been very thankful to God for these blessings. He was on his way to a place he had never been, to see people he had never seen, and he was going to stay there. And he had nothing with him but the clothes on his back and the staff in his hand. But was Jacob thankful? Well, let's take a look. So early in the morning, this is the next morning, Jacob made a vow, a promise, in other words, saying, if God will be with me and will keep me in this way that I go, and will give me bread to eat and clothing to wear, so that I come to my father's house in peace, then the Lord shall be my God, and of all that you give me, I will give a full tenth to you. In other words, God, if you keep your promises, I'll make sure there's something in it for you. I don't know about you, but that doesn't look like me to be thankful. Doesn't seem to be any gratitude here. I see Jacob the schemer, uncertain in his faith, bargaining with God. It's a wonder God didn't slap him upside the head. But that's not the God we worship. That's not the God we serve. God is patient and kind, abounding in steadfast love and slow to anger. God had plans for Jacob, and he wasn't about to let Jacob's self-centered foolishness get in the way of those plans. And aren't you glad that God doesn't let your self-centered foolishness get in the way of God's plans for you? Yes. I know I am. And God blessed him during those years that he spent with his uncle Laban. He came back home with 4 wives. And I know some of you men are thinking, is that a blessing? I don't know. But he came back with 4 wives and 12 children and went on the way. God had blessed Jacob. But those blessings didn't end. Those blessings didn't spare Jacob the suffering he had to endure because of those sins. He had sinned against Esau and against his father. He spent 20 years working for his uncle Laban. But God sure did bless him in that exile. Jacob came back to Canaan, rich not only in family, but also in property. We get some sense of just how much property in those days walked on 4 legs, Jacob returned with when we see what he gave away to his brother Esau. Now imagine Jacob is coming back with his family, and he's afraid of Esau. He's afraid, despite God's promises to him that he would never not forsake him, not leave him, he was afraid of his brother Esau. And so in an effort to buy the peace with Esau, he gave him a few things. And then when we take a look at what Jacob gave Esau, I'll give you some, if he's giving this away, how much stuff does he have? Look at what he gave away to his brother Esau. From what he had with him, he took a present for his brother Esau, 200 female goats and 20 male goats, 200 ewes, female sheep, and 20 goats, 30 milking camels and their calves, 40 cows and 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys and 10 male donkeys. And that's just the stuff he gave away. He divided his camp into two groups. So if Esau attacked one, the other could maybe escape. I mean, he was very, very wealthy. I would say that God had blessed Jacob very nicely. And the blessings weren't finished. The same night, he arose and took his 2 wives, his 2 female servants, which also acted as his wives, and his 11 children, and crossed the ford of the Jabbok, that's the Jordan. And he took them and sent them across the stream and everything else that he had. And Jacob was left alone. So get this picture. Jacob was left alone. Picture Jacob there in your mind in the wilderness, with no human companionship. He's just worrying and thinking about what's going to happen the next day. He's going to have to face his brother. He's going to have to face Esau after 20 years, thinking about what his self-centered sin has cost him, and thinking about what's going to happen when he sees Esau. You know, he's living a life of regret there. If only, if only, if only. He's forgetting about what God had promised him. You know, sin can do that, even for long-time Christians. The devil loves to get in our minds and remind us of all those things we've done, all those things we've said. The devil loves to create fear and isolation in the Christian mind. And the devil was working on Esau that night, on Jacob that night. But Jacob had forgotten what God had promised him. What had God promised him when he was on his way to exile? He said, behold, I am with you, and will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land, for I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. In other words, God had said to Jacob, I will never leave you, nor forsake you. There on that night, Jacob appears to have forgotten God's promise to him, and so God gives him a reminder, an up-close and personal kind of reminder. And a man wrestled with Jacob until the breaking of the day. When the man saw that he did not prevail against Jacob, he touched his hip socket, and Jacob's hip was put out of joint as he wrestled with him. Then he said, let me go, for the day is broken. That is, the man said, let me go, for the day is broken. But Jacob said, I will not let you go unless you bless me. And the man said to him, what is your name? And he said, Jacob. And then he said, your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with God and with men and have prevailed. Then Jacob asked him, please tell me your name. And he said, why is it that you ask my name? And there the man blessed him. So Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, saying, for I have seen God face to face, and yet my life has been delivered. The sun rose upon him as he passed Penuel, limping because of his hip. Therefore to this day the people of Israel do not eat the sinew of the thigh that is on the hip socket, because the man touched the socket of Jacob's hip on the sinew of the thigh. You know, God had already blessed Jacob beyond measure. I came back with a cold. He's already blessed Jacob beyond measure, with a huge family and growing wealth. But to his credit, Jacob sought a different sort of blessing from God. Here in this most personal and intense encounter with the incarnate God. God is incarnate here in a way that we can never understand God being incarnate anyway. But this is Christ. This is the pre-birth Christ coming in the form of a man and wrestling with Jacob. In that struggle, Jacob revealed a longing for a blessing of a different sort than he had had already from God. Already wounded in the hip by God, Jacob refused to let the man go, saying, I will not let you go unless you bless me. Now, what sort of blessing was Jacob after? Well, we're not told directly in the text what blessing Jacob was asking for. But there are some hints in the text and in the context of this meeting. As we have said, Jacob was already tremendously blessed in family and property. So it's unlikely that even Jacob would be looking for more blessing in those categories. I mean, how many wives can you use, right? So what was Jacob after? The text offers us a clue. Now, we've all heard the expression, what's in a name? You remember Romeo and Juliet in high school, right? Shakespeare has Juliet say this in that famous play. She said, what's in a name? That which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. You see, the problem was that Romeo was a Montague and Juliet was a Capulet, just like the Hatfields and McCoys. But Juliet, caught in the pains of teenage love, insisted that a person's name really shouldn't matter. But of course, names do matter, and they did matter. And in the Bible, names are particularly important if God gives the person a name, or the name speaks to the relationship of that person with God. Take, for example, Abram to Abraham. Abram, in Hebrew, means exalted father. Exalted father. Great name. But Abram's heavenly father had another name for him, Abraham. And Abraham means father of many, because God said, I will make you a great nation, and a multitude of nations will follow from you. And of course, every Christian looks to Abraham as the father of their faith, because Abraham believed God, and God counted his faith as righteousness. But unlike Abram, the name Jacob means anything but exalted. The name Jacob has to do with following closely on another's heel and actually trying to trip that person up and take his place. And that's what Jacob means. It's not a very nice name. So, but the name fit Jacob, the younger Jacob, to perfection. I mean, although his brother was born first, Jacob came out close behind him with his hand on his heel. And before you know it, Jacob had smooth-talked him out of his inheritance and stolen his birthright in the bargain. Jacob wanted to grab hold of his father's wealth and take the leadership role in the family. But his greed and deception, his unbridled ambition came at a great cost. He had to leave home and stay gone for 20 years. Jacob loved his mother. Jacob loved his mother dearly. He went 20 years without ever seeing her face, hearing her voice, feeling her embrace. And there's nothing in Genesis or in any other place in the Bible to indicate that when he returned home, he ever saw his mother's face again. That's a tremendous price to pay. So here, that night, face to face with the incarnate God, God challenged Jacob to let go of his past. Jacob was sitting there that night. He was hashing out. He was remembering all that stuff that he had done. And God challenged him that night to let go of his past and to seek a closer and more personal relationship with God. And I'm convinced it was exactly that desire that forced Jacob, to cause Jacob to grab hold of God and not let go. And it was God's desire to have that more personal and intense relationship with Jacob that led him to wrestle with Jacob in the first place. And to give him his new name, Israel. A name which embraces the concept of striving with God and prevailing in that effort. Now, not that we prevail over God, that's not the idea at all. But when we strive in partnership with God, we overcome this world. That's the idea of Israel. Striving with partnering with God to overcome this world. Jacob would have loved the song, Just a Closer Walk with Thee. Remember that song? Just a closer walk with Thee, granted Jesus is my plea. Daily walking close to Thee. Let it be, dear Lord, let it be. Remember Patsy Cline singing that? Some of you do. Jacob went into that night having been blessed by God tremendously materially. But like his descendant to be, King David, he desired something more. Not only did God meet Jacob's need for a closer, more intimate, more personal relationship, but God gave him a name that spoke to that special relationship, a name that would come to be synonymous with God's people. And in that renaming, Jacob was redeemed. Have you been redeemed? Have you been given a new name? Let me close with these words from the Apostle John. This will not be on the screen. Chapter 1, verse 10. He, Jesus, was in the world, and the world was made through him, yet the world did not know him. He came to his own, and his own people did not receive him. But to all who did receive him, who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. Do you believe? Do you believe in his name? Has your name been changed from Sue or Bob or Ted or whatever, Mary or whatever it was, to child of God? I pray that you do believe, and I pray that your name has been changed. Sorry, Juliet, but names do matter. And the time will come when every knee will bow and every tongue will confess that the name that is above all names, Jesus the Christ, is Lord. Let us pray. Our God and our Father, you've given us a new name. You've given us the name child of God, each of us here. We give you thanks for that, because what is Bob or Sue or Mary or Ted when we could be called a child of the Most High God?